Hey ladies, this is Mocha Mommy here bringing you another video. And in this video, I want to challenge you ladies. And I want to draw a couple of comparisons about values, value systems. And then I really want to challenge you ladies to go out and really find your currency, find your niche, and really begin to pursue the things that are going to make you more well-rounded as a person. Because I think that we spend a lot of time on a lot of ideological debates, but not a lot of down-to-earth practical skills. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a comparison between two different value systems. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but I'm going to draw these comparisons. I'm going to give you what I have. Okay, I'm going to give you what I have. And if I don't have the rest, I'm going to have to ask the Mocha Mommy audience for the information I don't have to put it in the comments section so that other people can find the resources that they need. And I also don't want there to be judgment, okay? I don't want there to be judgment at all in this space for whatever the path that some of the young women decide to take, some of the advice that they decide to follow, and some of the paths that they may choose for their lives. I don't want there to be judgment. What I want there to be is information and then creating an environment where we can create well-informed decisions. So shout out to Locked Honey Princess, who had opened up her platform to host a discussion with different women from all different walks of life to kind of come and contribute to a discussion about their level up journey and what sources of information they were using. So that content has since been taken down. So I will link her backup channel in the comments or in the description box below so you guys can follow her. But I'm just going to give you ladies my experience and what I would have contributed to that discussion had I had been a part of it. I tried to, but I wasn't able to. But I'm just going to give you my perspective and what I would have contributed to that discussion. One of the contributors to the panel had talked about how education and titles don't necessarily mean everything. I agree, they don't mean everything. But in certain circles, it means a whole heck of a lot. One of the things I will say is in my military career, titles and education meant a lot of things. For instance, those of us who were military officers coming in, those of us who came out of ROTC programs versus those who came out of West Point, there was a very definitive hierarchy in that circle. The West Point graduates were looked at more favorably. If they were a legacy West Point graduate, like the first person I had ever dated in the military, I talked to you guys about it, Bamsey, Dr. Gray, right? I'll call him Dr. Gray. But basically, he was a third generation West Point graduate. The fact that he was tapped to be the brigade surgeon at such a young age had a lot to do with the fact that he was a third generation West Point graduate. So again, in certain circles, certain education and affiliation means something. Having gone to an HBCU in the 90s at the time when retired General Colin Powell was a big deal. If you came out of those particular HBCUs, Grambling, Florida A&M, Howard, you were pretty much a bigger deal than a lot of the other African-American officers because of your affiliation and your proximity to that. So am I saying that education and titles is everything? No, but in certain circles, it does mean something. So when you're hearing people talk about, well, this stuff doesn't matter, it's no shade to that person. It's no insult to that person. But let me tell you from experience, in certain circles, it sure as hell does matter. So understand, get in where you fit in, understand where you're trying to circulate. Your identity is sometimes very much wrapped up in where you got your education and how you spent your career. Even just recently, we were doing some paperwork for one of our properties. And because of the way that property was financed, it was financed through a Texas Veterans Home Loan. And we had to file some paperwork tax-wise, right? It's coming near the end of the year. So we're getting that stuff together. Now, I had to sign my name and my spouse had to sign his name with our military insignia on it because of how it was financed. And now that my children or young adults and they're having to get financial things for themselves, like credit cards, bank accounts. They're using our military affiliated banking and financial institutions. Our veteran status also impacts them. So we can't say that titles and career have absolutely no bearing on people's lives and outcomes in romantic relationships. They absolutely do. In fact, 68% of military officers marry someone who is military officers or affiliated. That's the reality. So if you have a military officer spouse and you have no veteran affiliation, understand you are more the exception than you are the rule. You are more the exception than you are the rule in that environment. So just keeping that in mind as we roll forward. Ladies, I'm not trying to negate anyone and I'm not trying to create YouTube beef, but I am trying to make sure that you make an informed decision. Also in the medical field, know that when you finish medical school, they don't call you Mr. They don't call you Miss. They call you doctor. Your education and profession renegates your identity. You now have a new identity. You're no longer Mr. You're no longer Mrs. You're no longer Ms. You are doctor. Okay. So again, in these circles, education and career definitely plays a role in your identity. The majority of doctors are married to other physicians or medical professionals. I think it's somewhere upwards of 70+%. Am I saying that this means you can't date a doctor? No. I'm just saying that if you do date a doctor and you're not in proximity to the medical field, you're more the exception than the rule. I'm going to give you ladies a primary example. One of my responsibilities while in the military was they needed someone to be a clinical data manager. I really had no interest in doing it, but guess what? Uncle Sam says, do it, you have to do it. So I had to take some classes in order to get that certification. So in this particular class, there were definitely quite a few single girls, but there were also a large percentage of married women. And, seeing the ring on my finger, and seeing that I had arrived to class sometimes in uniform, they had pretty much asked, was my spouse a doctor at Wilford Hall or BAMC, Brooke Army Medical Center? And I said, oh, actually, no, I'm a reservist. I live in a different city, but my unit has me taking these classes. And my spouse actually is in IT. And they all kind of looked at me very odd, like, what? How did you? So I basically explained that, yes, I met my husband in the United States military. He had an IT related field in military intelligence. And that's how we met, because the reality was the majority of those women were wives of doctors. The majority of those women were wives of doctors. And the reason why they were getting their clinical data management certificate is because if you can manage patient traffic, file paperwork, medical paperwork, that's pretty much a third of a physician's time. And that's pretty much the difference between making about $300,000 a year, $350,000 a year working in a hospital system versus making $1 million a year being in private practice. Having a wife with a medical background who was also a certified clinical data manager. Okay. So, I was the exception, kind of not the rule. Like almost all of these women were nurses, physical therapists, medical healthcare administrators, and they were married to doctors. So again, that's one of those situations where your education and your training and your title makes a difference in your social circle. So we can't have these absolutes. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. I was one of the exceptions, right? I dated a guy in IT. I was married to a guy in IT when most of these women were married to physicians. There are exceptions, but I certainly wasn't the rule. So be very careful when you're listening to people who are the exceptions and they are not the rules. Now, you ladies may remember early in my channel, I had recommended the Boundaries series of books by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. The reason why I had recommended these books as opposed to the whole mindset of chew the meat, spit out the bones that other content creators were recommending is because I feel as if there's a degree of responsibility that I have to my subscribers to give them correct, valid, and indisputable information by people whose life matched their doctrine, right? As a person of faith, when your life matched your doctrine, is very important, because the reality is hypocrisy is holds greater penalties than people who are just blatant outright sinners. Okay. So again, I would much rather give my subscribers resources that are from clinical psychologists and family therapists who are in successful marriages, who have helped navigate interpersonal relationships on a professional and personal and spiritual level, and who have helped other people do the same and trained others in doing the same. So I would much rather give you valid sources than just opinions, because especially knowing the reality that the majority of the Mocha Mama audience pretty much fall under the guise of people who could technically be my children, right? That 18 to 24 age range. I can tell you easily, well, this content creator, part of what they say is true, so chew the meat, spit out the bones. Okay, but then if you end up choking, now I'm not a reliable source, nor is that content creator. So I would much rather you have correct information to build those foundational relationship skills based on actual fact, based on actual scripture, and based on actual clinical and data and the lives of the people who provide that information. One of the things you've never really heard me say on this channel was putting a dollar amount on a man's value. I have never, ever encouraged that. You can look at my old videos, hypergamy, do you know hypergamy and financial literacy, and money mindset. Typically, most six-figure earners in this country are closer to my age. They're in their mid-40s or above. And I don't suggest that for the demographic that listens to the Mocha Mommy channel, those of you who are in your late teens, early 20s. So as I'm mentoring the young healthcare professionals that are coming through my facility, and it's new resident season, as well as a lot of the graduate students who are coming through doing their clinicals and practicals, I just try to make it a point to facilitate conversation and to maybe have some of them sit with me in the provider break room every now and then and introduce them, because I just think that's much more important. May-December relationships tend to be very volatile, and I would just much rather have these young nurses date someone in their age range and in their tax bracket, because those are the relationships that end up being more stable. Also, you don't really have to go through the awkwardness of how much do you make? You pretty much know how much they make because they're in a similar field to you. Also, I don't think that men who choose different career options are necessarily low value. I look at people like content creator Jedi Mike 7 or or content creator, The Positive Leo, right? Both of these men are educators. Both of these men date Black women. Both of these men are not Pookies and Ray Rays like they say, and they don't have problems dating Black women, even with their career profession of choice. So again, I wouldn't consider these men low value because of the choices that they've made with their careers. For the most part, there's the exception and the rule. My problem is when people make content speaking as if the exception is the rule. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, education and status and, titles are not important. Well, that's more the exception than it is the rule. And they're trying to make it sound like that it is the rule, and it's not. So if you have a hard, fast way of cracking the code so that women can be the exception, say that you're doing that. That's the problem, is that they're not, okay? And now what I'm trying to tell you ladies is really it's about being strategic. Really, it's about learning and then learning yourself as well. So here's my challenge to you ladies. I wish I remember the name of the video, but Uppity Unicorn had created a video where she was kind of comparing Marilyn Monroe to Michelle Obama. Basically, something else that I would call like the trophy wife versus the power couple. Again, these are two very different but very real dynamics in how couples can relate to each other. And it really is your job to figure out where you fit in. And again, there are no absolutes, especially those of you who are reading The Art of War for Women. They say battle is like water, right? It can take any definitive form. It can take a variety of forms because it has no definitive shape. And again, there are no absolutes with this situation because you could be a little of both. You could have a mix of both. But here's my challenge to you, ladies. My challenge to you is to join a meetup group of something that interests you, whether you play chess or you are an artist or you are part of a book club or anything that interests you. You want to go wine tasting, whatever it is, join a meetup that is co-ed, that has a variety that will cater to your interests. A hiking club, a fitness club, a weight not loss club, whatever it is you want to do that is interesting to you. And then start to circulate a little bit more and socialize in that space. I also want you to create an online dating profile. And I know everyone says do not do coffee dates. And I understand why they say that. Here's my challenge to you. I know that a lot of you are extremely insular and safety is a big concern. My goal for you is just to start. The reason why I say coffee dates is because the reality is you're never going to see this dude again. It's very low stakes. It's 45 minutes out of your life. The reason why I'm saying that is try to get 3 conversations and then a meetup for a coffee date in probably the most expensive shopping district in your area. The reason why I'm saying this is because, number one, that's going to already vet out a lot of men just because of the location. And then 2, what I want you to do is after you have that coffee, make plans with a friend to walk around or get a Groupon to get your nails done or something just to get you out of the house. Because you need to really decide, is this an environment that you feel comfortable in, right? The coffee date is just a means to an end. We pretty much know that it's not going to really lead anywhere. I think the guy probably is under the perception it's not going to lead to too much either because he put very low effort into it. But this is just for you to gauge, is this something that I want? Is what I see around me reflective of me and my values and some work that I'm willing to put in? So that's why I'm just going to suggest that you take that little challenge to just find the highest end shopping center in your area, put that zip code into a dating app, and then see if you can just get an opportunity to socialize in that area and make it very low stakes. And just really find out if that's what you're willing to do. Because really it's about finding your currency, your wants, and your needs, and the game that you want to play. So that's the challenge that I'm going to give you to really find out what works best for you. I find that the, power couple dynamic works best for me, but others may find that the Michelle Obama power dynamic doesn't work for them, and they want to be a little bit more of the Marilyn Monroe type sugar baby or whatever extreme that comes in. All right. The kept woman, whatever form that comes in, you have to figure out if that's right for you, because you can't market power couple dynamics to a guy who wants a Marilyn Monroe. And you can't market Marilyn Monroe to a man who wants a power couple dynamic. And those things are definitely, they're not mutually exclusive, but it's important for you to realize where you are. And I realize that self-awareness comes not just from introspection, but it also comes from life experience. And I'm encouraging you ladies to get that life experience. This is Mocha Mami, and I'll see you in the next video.